Hey guys, Rob, Sigma 3 Survival School. Today I wanted to show you a couple of quick bird traps that you can throw together. I'm going to show you a couple of variations, and it's kind of a variation on the Ojibwe bird trap, which is an old school one. We're going to show you how to do it with a yo-yo, and then there's going to be another video after this on how to do it without a yo-yo. And the reason I like the yo-yo is because it's a really convenient trigger system for a million different types of traps, whether it be for fishing. I don't know if you haven't seen any of our survival fishing videos with yo-yos, make sure you check those out. But it's really just a cool little thing that you can throw in your kit that only weighs maybe 3-4 ounces tops, and it can do a million different things. So the first thing that I've got to do when making this Ojibwe or yo-yo based bird trap is I've got to procure a good pole. Alright, so once you procure your pole, you're going to want to strip all the limbs, and then we're going to put a point on the top so that the bird can't land on that. And then we're also going to put one here on the bottom. Now, the reason that we really like bird traps and snares and things like that is because in a survival situation, there's always kind of a priority of how food works. You always start small and work your way up and get bigger and bigger the longer that you're out there. And birds are typically by far the easiest thing to get. They're just plain stupid. And you know, snares, box traps, things like that. Paiutes are very effective for getting birds, and it's all about placement. So after you get your pole cleared up, get the limbs knocked off of it, get a point on the bottom and then another point on the top, then we're going to figure out the height that we want our snare at, and then we're going to drill a hole through this from one side all the way to the other. And you're just going to drill a hole all the way through this slowly but surely. The best overall tool for this is an awl, like on a Swiss Army knife. They're specifically designed to drill holes. And you don't want the stick to be too thick. Otherwise you're going to have a really large hole to drill, which can be difficult if you don't have an awl especially. So you want to get this hole drilled all the way through. You don't want the hole to be too big. Basically what we're going to do is take a branch and jam it in here, and this is where the snare is going to run through. After you get your hole drilled, the next step is to take one of the sticks that you cleaned off, one of the branches, and I like to find a Y point for the snare to actually rest on. I notice a lot of people online who do a trap similar to this always seem to use a straight stick, and it's just really difficult to get your snare, especially if it's a primitive cordage or any kind of cordage other than wire. Makes it difficult to set it on. So the first thing I'm going to do after I get this branch trimmed off is I'm going to take the end opposite of the Y, and I'm going to start contouring it to basically, I'm going to try to wedge this into here so that it barely fits in there. We want it to be like kind of a sensitive trigger so that even if a light bird lands on it, we'll still catch them. I'd say probably one of the biggest reasons that I like bird traps, other than the fact that they're easy to get, is that birds are one of the few creatures, small game creatures that we'd go after primitively that can't really bite through cordage. You know, that's the biggest problem with going after things like possums or squirrels or, game with teeth and things like that, is if you're using primitive cordage, there's a pretty good likelihood that, the animal's just going to, unless you get a head snare, that the animal's just going to turn around and bite the cordage off. But what we're going to do is take our yo-yo and mount it. I'm going to put it down, probably down here at the base. I want to have plenty of resistance on it so that when it does trigger, it triggers pretty quickly. And the farther out that you pull a yo-yo like this, the more quicker it's going to pull when the set when the trigger goes off. So I'm just going to attach that there, and then I'm going to take my yo-yo, and if y'all have never seen one of these yo-yos, basically how they work is they're like just a spool, and there's a little spring that's on the inside of this. And you know, a lot of people think that these things aren't very durable, and you know, they only cost a few bucks, but I've never had one break on me. So you know, they work pretty good and they last a long time. But the way this works is the trigger system, you got your rope here, and when they pull, or anything pulls, it I got hung up right there. Let me show you again. When they pull, it sucks the line back in. So I'm going to take this and kind of measure out the distance that you need. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of visual attractant. I've got my trigger stick in, and I've got my yo-yo, and I've made this into a snare loop. And so the next thing I'm going to do is just take some of these little berries and just kind of set them up on there. And you want to try to find something that's, you know, hopefully brightly colored, something that is not necessarily just real common in the area, something the birds, you know, would find a delicacy. And this trap will actually work without any visual attractant whatsoever. It just works. Traps always work better if there's bait. So now that I've got my visual attractant and bait, now we've got to go find a location to set this up at. The key when locating your traps for birds is to find an area that they frequent a lot, whether it be near their shelter areas, their feeding areas, or their watering areas. Here specifically, we are near a water area, and the birds like to come down here to the beach and, you know, sun themselves, wash off, all that good stuff, get a drink. So you want to find an area that's fairly open. So regardless of whether they're attracted to the visual bait or not, this is a nice little roost for them to bounce up and down on, because there's no other trees really close to this one. Another way that you can do it is to just find an existing tree that you don't necessarily have to carve at both ends, and just put it right in a thicket where you know that a lot of birds frequent. But what you're going to do, and kind of the cool thing, difference between setting it up with a yo-yo versus doing it with without one, is that without the yo-yo, you've got to tie a big knot up here. And this doesn't have a whole lot of tension on it as far as the line's concerned. And then you're just going to set your snare up there. You just make a snare loop. And then I'm going to place my visual attractant. Probably don't even need this much. Go ahead and pull these leaves off. And set that right in the middle of the snare. So here's the yo-yo, and the line all the way up. And basically how this works is that's just barely wedged in there. And when the bird flies up to roost or get the visual attractant, the stick will fall and the snare will catch them. The way this trap works is the bird will fly up here, and depending on the sensitivity of the trap, I typically like this trap for catching a little bit larger style of bird because of just the tension and things. But basically what'll happen is the bird will fly up here, he'll land, and then this will fall, and when this falls, the bird falls into the snare, getting himself hung up, and when he falls, he pulls the trigger on this, and basically this will snap down and keep really, I mean, this is quite a bit of tension, guys, and this is the advantage of having a yo-yo over the next video that we're going to show you. Is the downside to the old school way of doing this is depending on the size of the deadfall, and you'll know what I'm talking about as soon as you watch the next video, is you can break the legs or whatever's caught in the bird depending on it, so you kind of have to gauge your deadfall according to the size of bird you're going after, whereas I can catch any size of bird with this. And basically what it does is it keeps them pinned against this without so much tension that, you know, it snaps their legs or something like that they get away. And if I let go of this, it's got me good on my finger there. If I let go of this, this will snap right back to that, and that's how much tension that has. So this is a really good technique for catching birds real quickly. You can set up one of these traps in, you know, probably 15-20 minutes. I like to carry a lot of yo-yos in my kit, but this doesn't have to be done with yo-yos. You can do this completely primitive with, you could do this with no tools whatsoever. Make your own rope, you know, use stones to carve out your holes and things like that. As always, you know, you guys know what we're doing. We're out here creating an encyclopedia of survival, tactical, medical skills for your benefit. And the only thing that we ask from you guys is, you know, that you get out there and share our information on other forums, things like that. Help us spread this info around the web so that we can help everybody in the U.S. become more prepared and, you know, just be more self-reliant in general. So share, like, subscribe, and please leave commentary, or if you go out and try this, let me know your results. Let me know how you do. We're always interested in that. And thank you for your viewership as always.